So yeah, welcome. Thanks for coming. I'm going to be going through virtual brass band performance and production on a slightly more advanced level. So we're going to be looking at the way I do it personally, tips and tricks, and there will be a few assumptions. So I'm going to assume you know how to do some things, um, but if you don't, you could always go back and watch the beginners one and see some of the stuff I'm doing. So I'm going to straight jump straight into Logic Pro. Um, that's my DAW of choice, digital audio workstation of choice. I've used Logic since I was 15, so that's almost 6 years now. So I'm very accustomed to it and I love it. So yeah, I'm assuming that everyone here should be able to get to this point where they've dragged all their tracks in and they've lined them up. So for this particular song, which is All Night Long by Lionel Richie, I've got 75 tracks. 54 of which are actually players, and the rest is singing. Although I must say, 9 of them are me on drums because I'm just like that with drums. You need more mics. So score order, everything's score order. Starts at the top, goes all the way down to the percussion and the singing. Now you can see that I've coloured my tracks. Just a little tip: if you highlight, then press Option C, and you can see my key commands and where I'm clicking on screen. Option C brings up the color wheel, and you can go choose the colors of the certain track. I just like to keep I like to keep my tracks all colored individually for each section. So after we've done that, the next thing we need to do is organize it slightly more. So the first thing I always do after I've got my tracks in is create a marker where I want the video to start. I need to create a sync point. So up here, this little drop down arrow, you can add markers. So I'm going to add a marker just before the drums come in. So I've got a marker there, it's just called marker 1, but I'm going to call it video start. Now that is going to allow me to make sure every time that I bounce out the audio or render out the audio from this project, when I import it into my video editing software, it's going to be exactly the same starting point and I don't have to drag anything and make any sync things. So let's go on and do some more things with the audio. So I want to put all my sections into buses. If you don't know what a bus is, it's like a pipeline of audio that sends one signal from one place to the other. A really quick way to do that in Logic is Command Shift G or Shift Command G, and it's going to put all these coordinates in a summing stack. Now I'm just going to go back and show you that again. Select all the coordinates, hold Shift Command G, and I'm going to call it coordinates or abbreviate it. I'm going to go do the same for the horns and mellophoniums. So I'm going to call this horns. Now because you can see my typing on screen, any spelling mistakes are going to be really apparent. Trombones, select Shift Command G, Troms. Select the basses, Shift Command G, basses. Drum kit, got 9 mics in the drums for this session. Shift Command G, drums. Percussion, we've got, I'm not even going to count how many there is, plenty. And the singing is just everyone in the band singing the bridge of the song. Okay, so after I've done that, I've done most of my signal routing. So now all the coordinates are going through one fader, one track. I'll turn it down a bit because it's horribly distorting at the moment. Now, next thing I like to do is create a band sub mix. So I'm going to select the coordinates. I'm going to select the horns just by holding Shift. Command. Don't hold Shift, hold Command, because you want to not select every track in between. You just want to select the buses, so that the subgroups for each section. Hold Command, use some barriers, hold Command Troms, hold Command Basses. I'm going to skip the drums and I'll explain why I'm skipping the drums in a minute. Percussion and singing. Now I'm going to change all the outputs of those selected tracks to the next available bus, which is bus 10. What that means is I've now got a bus over here, or an aux track, where everything except the drums is coming through, and I'm going to call it band sub. If I can spell. There we go. So now this is all about signal flow. So take the soprano for example. It's coming in through the audio file, coming out of bus 1, then the cornet track is receiving from bus 1, so it's coming through the cornet track, then it's getting sent out of bus 10, then it goes to the band sub, then to the stellar output. So that's 5 places the audio goes before it gets to our ears. Just the way I like doing things, and I think it makes the process so much easier. So once we've done that, I'm just going to go up here and change project, because I've created a new version of the project where we've left off. So this is the exact same thing, just exactly where we left off. The next thing I need to do is gain stage. If any of you know what gain staging is, it's pretty much making sure the signal between all these different sections, between all these different buses, we need to make sure that the signal is at a decent level. Don't want it distorting. So what we're going to do is go to our mixer window by pressing X on the keyboard, and I'm going to go highlight the cornet bus and the cornet track, and then the very last track, which is singing 21, the 21st singer. And I'm going to turn everything right down so that when I press play, nothing plays. And I'm going to bring everything up until I can see that we're at a decent level and nothing is going orange or red. So before, it was like this. See the plus 8 decibels, that's far too loud. I'm going to bring it down about halfway. And the reason everything's so loud is because phones record and want it to be as loud as possible, so when you watch it on your camera or on your phone, it's nice and loud, but we don't want that. Always safer to be quieter than you need and you can turn up later than to be too loud and not be able to turn down. That is a decent level for me. Okay, so once I've gain staged everything and there's nothing going orange or red, it's all green up here. The next thing to do is pan. So I treat panning like I'm the conductor. I just point it to where they might be. So soprano, almost all the way 90 degrees to the left, so that's about 35 in Logic. I've got 2 sob tracks because there was 2 parts at the end on 2 staves. So I'm going to put that at the same place, so it's apparent coming from the same place. Trumpet 1, we're going to put trumpet 1 a bit to the left. Trumpet solo, straight bang down the middle, because I'm imagining that my dad's going to come out. My dad's the trumpet player. He's going to come out into the centre of the stage. It's all about trying to visualise what your video is going to look like when you're doing this. So trumpet solo is down the middle. Trumpet 2 can go a bit to the right. Trumpet 3 can go a bit to the left. Trumpet 4 can go a bit to the right. Trumpet 6 can go a bit to the left. I skipped one, so that's trumpet 6. But pretty much just a wee bit to the left and right. It's going to make it have a pretty narrow image, not as far out as maybe the trombones and the sop, but still in the middle of the stage. Everything else, standard brass band layout, so rep's going to be over there. Second cornets, we're going to get a bit closer to the middle. Third cornets are getting closer to the middle. Just pretend these are the eyes of the conductor. Horns, flugelhorn's a bit to the right. I always keep my solo horn right in the middle. First horn maybe a bit to the right. I meant left when I said right, obviously. When I said flugelhorn. Go right there. A wee bit further right for the second horn. Mellophoniums, I'm actually going to do left and right, similar to the way I've done for the trumpets, because they're quite a feature instrument of this piece. The euphonium's going to be like opposite the soprano. Euphonium 2 not as much. Bary's not as much. So getting closer to the middle. Solo trombone's going to be opposite from the soprano as well. Second trombone not as much. Bass trombone getting closer to the middle. I keep my basses right in the middle. It's a nice foundation. I keep my drums in the middle, except because I've got multiple mics. We're talking about a multiple mic drum kit here. I'm going to pan the toms to where they would be So tom 1, for the audience perspective, is just slightly to the right. Tom 2, slightly to the left. Tom 3 is further to the left. The hi-hat is pretty far to the right. My overhead left, so this is the mics that are over the drum kit. That's going to go all the way, like fully left, and the overhead on the right is going to go all the way to the right. Now I treat my percussion just left, right, left, right, left, right. Maybe sometimes I'll say, oh, maybe the triangle should be in the right and the shaker should be in the left, so they're kind of complementing each other. But that's all creative, and it's all up to you to decide. And singing, we're going hard left, hard right, fully panned all the way, because they're all singing the same part. It's going to make it sound huge when it's panned. I'm not going to go through and do it all because there's 21 singing tracks. So now we're going to get a rough balance. So we're now panned, we've got everything at a decent level. I'm going to go through section by section and turn things up and down. Solo the cornet bass. So I want more sop. I think it's too much. Too much back row, I think. And I know there's a sound in here that's quite distorted. That's the one. So I'm going to bring that right down. Just too distorted and it doesn't sound great. Trumpet 1 up. Right, so obviously this is a creative thing and you need to use your ears and just get a decent balance. So I'm going to switch project again to where it's already been mixed, volume and panned. So if I go X, you can see my mixer and you can see where all my volumes are at. In terms of drum mics, this is how it's sounding, just dry. A lot of snare drum. It's arguably the most important instrument in the whole band, for me anyway. Nice and loud for the snare drum. Plenty cornets and trumpets. Plenty low end. I like having my basses pretty high in the mix. It just creates a nice foundation, and then sculpt everything around that. So far we're sounding like this. Cool, there we are. So it's sounding good so far. We're getting a few hiccups just because I'm on Zoom and I'm screen sharing. The computer sometimes freaks out, but it usually doesn't do that. So now this question I get a lot is about fixing audio, making notes longer, shorter, making notes more in tune, fixing ensemble issues. Logic's got this amazing thing called flex time and flex pitch, and it's this little thing that looks like DNA up here. When you open that, it brings up your flex editing on the tracks. So I'm going to select all the cornets. I'm just going to focus on cornets right now and trumpets. And you've got the options of flex pitch, flex time, and all the different algorithms. So automatic will choose the best one for you, but recommend polyphonic for brass. I think it sounds the best. Polyphonic always sounds the best. But today we're going to just focus on flex pitch. So I've just tapped flex pitch and it's turned it on. And you can see all the tracks have went darker. Let's go to the very last bar. Okay. Use this slider here to zoom in and you'll start to see the notes come up. So let's solo trumpet 1 for instance. So you can do things like change vibrato, add some ridiculous vibrato. Don't want that, but bring it back down to 0. Well, 100% means the way it was. So if you ever change anything, put it back to 100%. That's where it was. You can change the loudness of certain notes. That's good for dynamics. But most of all, you can change where the notes are. So let's have a look. Let's just solo the cornets here. I'm hearing a trumpet late on the first note, and I can see that it's that one. It's just a wee bit later than the rest of them. So I'm just going to click and drag. That sounds a lot better to me. And in terms of pitch, I can see visually that these are pretty close. None of them are perfect, but you don't want super perfect pitch. Otherwise, you're going to sound like a robot. But I can tell that this one's sharp. I don't know how well that's going to come across in the screen recording, but see how it's just a wee bit, zooming in a lot here. See how it's further up than it's meant to be? The note should be down there, whereas it was up a bit. Now, the way to correct the note is just double tap it, and it's going to put it in pitch. So before, this sounded like this. It's a bit sharp, isn't it? Double click, and it's in tune. Now you can spend absolutely ages really going through it and fixing people playing wrong note lengths. Someone asked in the last one about fixing note lengths, so I'll just show you how you can do that here. What we need to do, well, first of all, it needs to be an actual note instead of, yeah, they're all really short notes anyway. Let's choose this note. There you go, let's choose that note, trumpet 3. Grab the end of the note and drag it. Now you'll notice it's going to get rid of the note next to it, so what you need to do is split the audio file just before the next note. So Command T in Logic is split these into 2 separate files, which is going to let me do this. And drag out the note so it's longer, and I'm just going to make that shorter. And you can make it shorter as well, so, or you can make it even shorter, although it starts to sound like a robot. Really starts to sound like a robot. You can put it at its normal length again. So yeah, really great tools you can use to really manipulate things, but be careful because you can make it sound artificial. But really handy if someone plays a wrong note as well. Say someone plays that, they played it like that, you can just go like that and fix the note. So amazing that you can do that. I would spend a while going through everything, but I don't have all day, so let's move on to mixing, which is my favourite thing in the whole wide world. Well, it has become over lockdown anyway. It's the only thing I've been doing. So, again, exactly where we left off. I've not changed anything. The only reason I'm switching sessions is to keep myself in the loop of where we are. So, let's open up my mixer. You can see now that I've, if it's working yet, I've got some plugins up here. You just add the plugins. These are all the built-in Logic ones, although I've got some like third-party ones that I've bought, some Waves ones. But this is where you start really honing in your like tools and your ears to make it sound the way you want it to sound. So let's focus on soprano. Okay, sounds good. I'm going to open up my EQ and see what I've done to it. There you go. So what I've done is I've cleaned up all the low end. I've taken out the low end because people moving on the ground, the vibrations might come up into their phone and it's just going to create this low rumble that can get quite problematic. I've taken out quite a lot of mid-range as well because that's just not where a soprano sits. You want to leave room for other instruments, just pave the way for other instruments. Subtractive EQ can be more important than additive EQ, and additive being adding, subtractive being taken away. So I've added some high end. It's pretty harsh, but it's a nice harsh. It's gonna cut through. Let's see what I've done to the euphonium. Let's go to here-ish. So add my EQ. I've added some low end, just a boost, because that's kind of where his notes are, all around there. You can see in the analyzer where the notes are. So that's kind of going to fatten up the sound a bit. I would even go and cut out some more low end so we don't get in the way of the basses if there's any weird noises that come through. I've added some air to the top of the sound. It's really subtle. I just think that helps euphoniums and lower brass cut through. You wouldn't think to add high end, but it's a really nice rasp that comes through that makes it sound more present in the mix. Look, so I've just EQ'd 2 instruments on their own. What about EQing sections? So I'm going to EQ the whole trombone section. Nice bite to it. That's all I would do to that. I think it sounds great the way it is. Let's look at a bass. B flat bass 1. Literally just added some high mids for a little bit of bite. Be careful with basses. If you do boost the low end, I mean high end, it does sound really nice, but it really accentuates their breaths, and sometimes the breaths get too much. You need to start cutting out breaths. And then the bass bus, so everything's coming through this. All the basses are coming through here. This is where I've boosted the actual bass frequencies. So let's hear the whole bass section. And even more high end. Now, my favourite part, obviously the drums. I played drums in this. So, 9 mics as I've said. Let's talk about the bass drum processing. So this is how it sounded on its own. I'll turn it up so you can hear it. So it's okay. One mic. I've actually got the mic right here. It is Sennheiser E602. It's a nice bass drum mic. Works really good on tubas as well. So I used that in the bass drum. It sounds good. Let's put on the EQ. So I've boosted a lot of low end. I don't know what you're listening on, but if you're listening on something with a decent low end, you'll hear that nice boom that we're getting. Boosted a lot of top end because bass drums need to come through on smaller speakers. Most people listen to these performances on their phone and Facebook. There's no way a bass drum's going to cut through if you don't add that high end. It sounds a bit too much, but see in the mix you don't hear it. Then I've just got another EQ, multiple EQs for a different colour, just adding some more high end, some more low end. Again, the most important instrument in the band, the snare drum. I've added some high end here, just another EQ. I love what this EQ does to a snare drum, just 8 kHz, the standard setting. Another EQ is boosting some 1K, 1 kHz. That's where the tone of the drum is. Another EQ, adding some low end, a bit more high end. Then this is the first time we've talked about compression. This is a classic compressor. What compression does is it squashes dynamic range, right? So you don't really want to use it unless you're. I would put it on a trumpet solo, for instance, where you want it to push forward in the mix and you want every note to be heard. But I wouldn't use it on like a mellow euphonium, just because it's going to kill the dynamic range. But what it does to a snare drum or any drum is it squashes the attack, takes away the loud part, then brings it back up for the decay. So I'm going to play it without the compressor, and you watch this needle, and this is like how much volume it's taken away. On its own, then we're going to compress it. Hear the punch. So that sounds pretty good. I'm not going to go through the full drum processing, but pretty much the toms, all I do is I boost the fundamental frequency of the actual note of the tom. I take out some mids around about 1000 Hz because it's not very nice usually, and I boost some high end for the attack. Then I compress them in a very similar way to I just showed you. Got 2 overhead mics, and this is what the full drum mix sounds like, without reverb of course. I love having that hi-hat mic. It's just really crisp and It just adds a whole nice texture to the music. In terms of other percussion, there's loads in this track. I'll let you hear it. Let's go here. Hear that, a go-go bell. I thought that sounds good, but I want to hear more of the notes of the bells. So I went and found the frequencies of the notes just by sweeping around for them. So that's with EQ and without. So it's just boosting the fundamental frequencies of the bells. Good, okay. Cowbell, similar thing. I've boosted the fundamental frequency of the bell right there. This track is absolutely nothing without auxiliary percussion. So boring without it. And then for the singing, I've literally just added a whole load of high end. Yay, Jumbo Jumbo! Yay, Jambalaya! Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all my tracks and turn on all my EQs and compression on every track and let you hear how it sounds. So I think at this point I was happy with the mix. There's not EQ and everything. I thought some things just sounded good the way they were. The next thing is reverb. Now go back to the band sub. The reason I do this is because I don't like the sound of the reverb I like on brass on drums. That's quite hard to grasp, but I find that when I put the same reverb that sounds amazing on brass and put the drums through it, it just sounds rubbish. So this is the reverb just on the brass and percussion. So it's a concert hall preset, and it's Chromaverb on Logic. Then I've also got a Waves plugin called Abbey Road Plates, just another reverb. Sounds like this. Sounds a bit too much, but once you blend it in, it's nice. I blend that in probably around 5 or 6%. It just adds a nice tone to the reverb. And then there's a limiter to make sure it doesn't get too loud. So now we'll listen to the full mix. It's good, but no drum reverb yet because I thought, as I said, that big reverb just sounds ridiculous on drums. So let's listen to what I've done to the drum reverb. So that same Abbey Road plates, it's very short reverb. Short reverb sounds so much better on drums, I think. Then I put a compressor after the reverb to smack it down. Compression, no compressor. So that's the final mix almost. After adding some separate reverb to the drums and the rest of the percussion, brass and percussion, it's time to do some automation. Now I'm mostly focusing on audio here. We will get to the video soon, but I think audio is way more important. Like, you can have a okay looking video and great audio and I'd be really impressed, but if you've got a great video and rubbish audio, I don't know. Let's see automation. What automation is changing volume over time. So if we look at the soprano here, I'll turn on the automation that I've done. I've turned up and down certain notes here. There you go. So just the notes that I thought needed to go up. And same with the trumpet one. That section really needs to be really loud. I listened to my dad do that. That was fun. It was really loud that day. Other places I've automated sections. So the horns got a really important part in this section of the song. So I've turned up the whole volume on the just the horns track. So not their individual tracks, the horns bus. So without the automation, that would sound like this. Well, similar to this. But if I just bring it up. There you go. Other things I've automated, I've got a whole load of automation in the use and barriers at the start. Bit more. There you go. Other things I'm automating is the whole band. So the band sub, right there. Towards the end I wanted to play with the dynamics a bit, because dynamics are really hard to come across on phones. So I've just automated the whole dynamic of the whole band. So it's coming down. Dynamic comes up. There you go, just boosted that last note for a bit of emphasis. So after I've done all my automation on almost every track, I spend a lot of time doing this. So that, half an hour, that would probably take me a week normally. So next thing is getting this audio ready for the video. So remember that video start at the very start, that icon we made, that marker? I'm gonna highlight from there to the very end just by dragging this yellow thing. Make sure we get the reverb tail in. So that's enough time for the reverb to die out. Then we just go Command B or bounce down there on the bottom left, sorry. I'm going to create a wave file. Now so far we've been working at standard CD quality, 44.1 kilohertz. The higher the sample rate, the better the quality. But now, because I'm moving to video, I'm going to render this file as a 48 kilohertz bounce. Just because the audio that you get, the audio that you bring into Final Cut, the software I'm going to be using, from video, from people playing, is almost always 48 kilohertz, and you don't really want to muddle things up. Final Cut can deal with it, but sometimes it can just be better safe than sorry if you create the 48 kilohertz file. So we're gonna bounce that out. I've already done it, so I don't need to, but you would save that as All Night Long Final Mix, whatever you want. So that's quite Logic. I'm not going to save it because I've got my other version of it. Now let's open up Final Cut Pro, my editing software of choice. Final video. So I'm going to talk about a few things here. Just my kind of workflow, how I work things in Final Cut, because I have a feeling I do it differently to almost everyone. So let's create a new project as if we're just starting off. I'm going to call it All Night Long Tutorial. And 30p, 30 frames per second, 1080 HD, and 48 kilohertz sample rate for the audio. I'm going to go find my final mix, which is in my media folder here somewhere. It'll be called Final Mix. There it is. And I'm dragging it in. Always, most important thing, the audio needs to be the primary storyline. If your video is a primary storyline, it's going to get really messy later on. So audio comes in first. Now, let's use a bass as an example. Let's use Graham. I just drag in his video file on top of the audio file, and I look for his waveforms, and I go line them up. And I'm sure you will be used to doing this. It's not the most fun thing in the world. That's good for me. Now, very important, drag to the very start until it's synced up with the start of the audio file. Now we create a new file. Now we create a compound clip. So Option G is going to create a compound clip. So I'm just going to show you that again. Once you've dragged the start of the video file back to the start, click it, Option G, and now we're going to call that E flat bass. Obviously I've already done it, so I don't need to press OK, but that's going to create a new compound clip that we can now be sure we can get Graham off the timeline. We can just delete him. So now we're back to just audio. I like my timeline being really small, two or three things at the most. So now I'm going to show you one more example of that conga, just for some percussion. Drag her in. Let's find where it syncs up. Probably around a bit earlier than that. I'm happy with that. Now you don't normally we'd have to mute the audio, but my workflow you don't have to mute the audio because I'll show you in a minute. It's really cool. So you pull it back to the start. Select it, Command G. Sorry, Option G. You can see it on the screen, and I'll call that conga, which I've already done. Don't need to do that. Right, and now every clip that I create a compound clip of, I'm going to press F on it. Just press F and it creates a favourite. So you can see this is all my media. It's an absolute mess, which is fine. I did say stay organised earlier, but this is organised for me because as soon as I press Control F, it's just my favourites, and this is the super organised, everything I need. So I've got the final mix and I've got everyone's individual videos. And I can go back to just having the audio on the timeline. Now, it'd be too much to go into today, but there's another Apple software called Motion, and it lets you create backgrounds generators. So generators are things like this, things like that you can just drag in to your timeline. And I've created my own wee folder with literally, this isn't half of it. I've got more in my external drive, probably more than 100 different layouts for different amounts of people, and it's like presets. It's great. So 64 people. I've got ones up to 120 now, which I don't recommend. So let's grab the very first one I ever made, which is 4 videos. Drag it on the timeline. Zoom out. Drag it to the very end. Okay. Now, in these generators, I've got drop zones, which are little arrows that I press and then choose what goes in them. I've got the colour of the border, so let's choose the colour as sort of like light grey. I've got the width of the border. I usually go 10 pixels. Really easy to fix this if you're changing projects and you just want to change the colour of the borders, which is sometimes difficult. Let's go back to our favourites menu by pressing Control F. And let's choose our first scene, and I call this a scene. So since we've already done them, we'll pick Graham because we just synced him up, and we'll pick Conga because we just synced her up. Go back into the generator. Now, when I first made this generator, I wasn't as good as I am now, so I don't have the bits in order. So you'd think that'd be video 1, video 2, video 3, video 4, but no, this one's video 1, video 2, video 3, video 4. And I've just got used to doing it that way, and I've never changed it, but each to their own. So all you need to do is go find what you want where and press the very first frame of it. So see how you can scroll through it? As long as the first frame lines up, that is the sync point that we created with that marker in Logic. Let's choose one more person. My dad, why not? With his wig. Okay. I'm going to turn on proxy media because I've created. If you know what proxy media is, it just makes your workflow so much faster. Just highlight, right click, transcode media, create proxy media, or optimized, but I prefer proxy because it makes the computer run faster. But we are on Zoom and I'm screen sharing, so this might play and it might not. So I'm going to call that scene 1, okay? And this is where compound clips come back in. I'm going to create another compound clip. I'm going to call it scene 1. and that's condensed that whole thing into one clip. And I want scene 1 to end there. So I'm going to press Command B to blade it and get rid of the rest of it. So it goes. Now I've got space for the next scene. And now I can use that scene anywhere. Because I dragged it out the full length of the project, I can use that anywhere in my project. Let's go back to my generator tab and let's choose, let's go for 6 people for scene 2. Always very start, it needs to be from the start. You can't do that. You would think, oh, I'll just put it there, but it's not going to be in sync. It needs to be from the sync point. So let's put it underneath scene 1 for now, and zoom out. Like so. Now we've got scene 2, which is currently blank, and I need to make sure that the borders are match colour. So I think it was that one, and that's 10 pixels wide. Yeah. So this one should be in order because I was getting a bit more used to creating the templates by now. So I just go through, and when I'm choosing, my process is like, obviously I'm not thinking now, but who's panned where on the screen, and where do I want them to be during like a solo. So I tend to like have things that are panned left on the left. I've not done that just there, but I tend to keep the audio and video together in terms of where things are in the stereo field. That seems good. So there's scene 2. Press just that, Command G, Option G, keep saying that, Option G, creates a compound clip. I'm going to call that scene 2. You can see my awful spelling on the screen. Now you're going to go like that. You're going to search for where this ends, and it will snap to it. See how it snaps? It's not moving because it's at the end. Just do that, then press Command B, blade it, and get rid of what you don't need at the start. So now it switches scene. Okay, now say in a couple bars I want to go back to scene 1. Gonna Command B it there, get rid of what we don't need. Grab scene 1, drag it out underneath, blade it at both sides, Command B, delete. Obviously this is playing in real time, so it's a bit stuttery, but once you render it looks great. So that is my basic workflow. Now I'm going to take you into the actual project, and just quickly before we get some questions, show you firstly what it ended up like. Some of you might have seen it already. So it ended up looking like this. So if we actually open this compound clip, this is the session. So look how many times I changed scene, and I don't worry about the name scene. I just call it the number. Maybe some of them I actually call trumpet solo, because just so I know which one's which. Because when you're in all clips, when not in favorites, all clips, all of these scenes show up here, so you can go back to them at any time and drag them in, and they'll always be at that sync point at the start of the audio file. So you can see, just because they're normal clips now, you can go do transitions between them. So it's, if we go back to that one we just created, transitions over here, do a simple cross dissolve, drag it in, we can do a cross dissolve between them, just like that, nice and easy. So we'll go back into where we were, loads of transitions, loads of different scenes. Now I've got some lighting overlays here. This is what they look like. I just downloaded them off YouTube, made sure they were free, no copyright, all that stuff. This is what they look like normally. Just black, pretty boring, not the best quality stuff, but if you change the blend mode to add, it's going to take away all the black and turn down the opacity, and you're blending in some nice effects over the top. And this is when the computer really starts freaking out when I'm on Zoom as well. So luckily I can just go show you what that actually looked like on the master file. Some other things, green screens, just quickly going to cover green screens. This is how I do it anyway. First of all, don't wear green. Scott wore green in his top, so just it's sometimes it looks fine, but it's always easier if you don't wear green. Just drag on the keyer, which is in the effects. You can always go search for keyer. Okay, and now grab the sample color that pops up and take a big section of just the green screen. There you go, that works for me. Cool. Now, go grab a mask. So go into the mask section, get draw mask, drag it on. We're going to zoom out a bit, so maybe 25%, and I'm going to just outline his green screen and couch. There you go. Now you can put whatever you please behind that. Where are we? I'll just put the actual all night long video behind them. There you go. Easy as that. So yeah, that's pretty much a 1 week process put into 45 minutes. So I'll stop sharing my screen just now, and hopefully that was some good information and food for thought. Bounce in place, just so I'm just gonna share my screen, not open Logic, and show you. Bounce in place, what it does is it creates all these little audio files that I've maybe split up, and it makes them into one continuous file. And the reason I've done that for today is because this session was huge and it was taking ages to play and stuff, so I just consolidated everything down into one file. I'll just quickly show you. We got, right, this is where we left off. So if you press, is it Control B? Yeah, it'll bounce in place. If you place selected track, delete the source, bypass the effects plugins, it replaces that audio file with a brand new one with all the stuff you've done to it. Really handy. Before everyone goes, I'll just put this video link in the chat so you can have a wee look. No, but it's been a pleasure. Everyone that's taken part in all the competitions coming up, good luck. And if anyone's got any questions, just fire me a message on Facebook, or you could get in touch with John and you can get in touch with me. Here's the link to everyone. This is the one I used to learn.